Good afternoon, everybody. That should be an exciting panel here, so appreciate everybody's attention. My name is Dan Sterling. I am with Optimove. We are a CRM marketing platform that has the pleasure of working with brands like Sephora and Staples to help them use customer data and create better customer campaigns, journeys, messaging, increase engagement, lifetime value. So that's us in our pitch if you haven't heard of Optimove, but I definitely want to turn it over to each of the founders to introduce themselves and not just their name and title, but actually like a little bit about these brands. Some of them you may have heard of, some of them you may not have, and so I thought it's a great chance to learn a little bit about these brands. We're going to be talking about building customer affinity and how that really starts with education. It was something we heard a bunch about today, including from Muriel as a key tenet of what Vitamin Shoppe does, and so with that, we'll get the intros going and then talk a little bit about the topic of the day. So, Kris, let's start us off.
Sure, thank you very much. So, I've been in this industry now for over 25 years as a publisher, editor, bodybuilder, hybrid athlete, competed in various sports. And it wasn't until I got diagnosed with mold toxicity that I started really looking into food groups, supplements, grains, coffee, wherever there was mold toxins or mycotoxins, and then that kind of transferred into the supplement industry. And I just noticed there was a huge disconnect between the health and the fitness aspect. You know, it wasn't always healthy. And what a lot of bodybuilders do isn't necessarily healthy, even though we may think it is. It isn't always that way. So we kind of wanted to merge the sports performance sector with the health span sector. So myself and Doug Miller, my co-founder, we decided we wanted to bring something to the industry that was like naturally sweetened, fermented amino acids. We wanted to kind of stay away from certain things that would spike cortisol levels, such as caffeine, and try to merge, like I said, the biohacking sector and the health span sector with the sports performance sector, and put something into our bodies that we feel is healing our future and not just harming it. If I look at food, I'm looking at organic, grass-fed, humane raised, blah, blah, blah. And I kind of look at supplements in the same way. I don't think there should be a disconnect. It should actually contribute.
Excellent. That's great. By the way, too, I knew I should have worked out this morning as I sit up here. Anyways, Dom.
So my name is Iacovone. Started in the medical field, still in it. I own Relive Health, which is the largest concierge medicine franchise in the country. And I started Raw Nutrition in 2019, the end of 2019. Just passionate. I've always been into this. I did my undergrad in molecular microbiology and went on and got my doctorate. So just very, very passionate about health and fitness and wellness and everything that comes with that.
Great. Thanks, Dom. Daniel?
Hi, everybody. I'm Daniel Wallace. I started our brand called Force Factory back in 2009 after being a high school and collegiate athlete, and then learning the early days of customer acquisition through digital media as a Facebook ads advertiser right at the very beginning of Facebook ads, and I've worked and grown the business ever since. We sell to large retailers and specialty retailers and e-commerce retailers in the U.S.
Excellent. Thanks a lot. So, again, on the topic of consumer education and ultimately building that affinity, we know it's critical. What we want to hear is for you in your efforts for sales and eventually retaining a customer, how do you see it as critical and what are some of the strategies you're using to educate people about the products or even retailers who carry them? So whoever would like to go first, we can have kind of a free-for-all.
So, content has always been where I come from. Like I said, as the editor of various publications, websites, content is my king, basically. And through that, I think you're able to kind of distinguish whatever you're doing over anybody else, to a certain degree, if you have those USPs. And you have to educate the consumer, because if you're putting out a product that isn't necessarily cheap or more expensive than anything out there, how do you justify it? How do you justify people's spends? Because obviously they're working hard to make that investment, and you want to then provide more value than what they're paying for, even though that investment may be quite expensive. So you have to justify it, and you make an investment in your health, which is priceless. It's not something that is materialistic that you can't take with you. You can take this with you and increase that health span. So it all comes through education. That could be through email, could be through videos. Now we have social platforms. So we use everything because somebody is going to be on some social platform, but they may not be on another. They may be subscribing to an email and not be on socials whatsoever. So I think we use all of these platforms, but we utilize it. And of course, you need to be repetitive to a certain degree. Someone that may find you now had not followed you 3 months ago, so you have to repeat yourself.
Right, especially in your brand recently launched, right? So
Yeah,
it's also
just this week.
you're
Vitamin Shoppe.
really educating a lot of people, and congrats on the launch. Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Can you repeat the question real quick?
No problem. Yeah. So really, it's about like what are the strategies you use when we think about customer education in general? What are the strategies you use, and how does that affect sales and retention?
Yeah, so one of the things that we did that was really like unique to the market when we launched, and this is with another brand I own called Revive MD. It's a vitamin company, also sold at Vitamin Shoppe. And what we did was, for basically in the supplement industry right now, everything is really fully transparent labeling, right? So when you look at something, it's to say what's on the back of it, and obviously, it's supposed to be in the product. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. So what we did with Revive is we were one of the first brands that actually sent our products out after they were purchased or that we made them. We would send them to a third-party lab, and that lab would test the products, and we would actually post the results of that test on our website that you could align it with the batch number of the bottle. So if you got a product at Vitamin Shoppe, you could take it, look at the back of it, look at the lot number, go on our website, and you could see the testing for that product. And I think that was something that really resonated well with the consumer, and I think that it created a lot of brand trust. And I think we were able to build a lot off of the brand trust that we did there. It wasn't the cheapest thing in the world to do. I'm sure if anyone in this room knows how much that costs, it's a lot, and some of our products have like 20 to 30 ingredients in them. But it was something that, going back, it was probably one of the best things we ever did as a brand. So that's what we did.
Excellent.
We actually had transitioned about 5 years ago or so from a D2C primary kind of business model to a retail and e-commerce channel model, and some of that transition came with kind of a simplification of helping educate consumers based on what is this product, what does it do for me, where can I buy it, and like the very simple, direct product claims and availability information that consumers need to make their decisions. So we're very focused on scalable, reach-based media. So in short form TV, on-platform retail media, and paid digital, paid social, and all with kind of a lens towards wellness-oriented products, but help the consumer understand what's in it for them and why it's worth their hard-earned money. To Kris's point earlier.
Excellent. And then what you mentioned, Dom, about like having the labeling and that helps with the new customer. You're talking about advertising, right? And people first encountering the brand. What are there ways of treating them differently when you have a new customer versus somebody who understands the brand better? How do you work with that messaging and that to educate them?
What's that for me?
For any one of you, yeah.
Okay, no worries. So, can you repeat just part of that question?
For new customers in particular, like what are some of the tactics? And Dom talked about, again, having labeling where somebody's just encountering that.
Yeah.
But how does that show up in the messaging? You talked about content before. Love to hear your tactics you guys have used.
Right, for sure. Okay, well, we want people to fill their cart with our products. It's not just one and done.
Right.
So we'll talk about, how they can stack certain products together, how one is going to be specific for some sort of sport. So, I've competed in Ironman triathlon, ultramarathon, but bodybuilding as well. And the unique thing is, like with Doug and I being co-founders, we work out. We actually live this lifestyle. We're not just in the lab, we're actually in the trenches as well. So we can kind of relate a little bit better to some consumers because of that. And then other than that, if we've got people that are long-time customers or, they're repeat purchasers, now, of course, we're going to send them an email to tell them, look, you need to re-up. But we're also going to follow up and see how they're going with their goals. Are they reaching them? Is there anything that we could do to further facilitate and help? And what we also do is create a community. We have a WhatsApp community, we have a Facebook community where we can interact and engage with our customers and our ambassadors as well.
It's fantastic. Yeah, that's something we think a lot about, obviously, being in a CRM marketing platform as we are. Like, then what does that post-purchase part look like? So really, really good to hear about. For Dom and Daniel, too, love to hear that. Like, so now we talked about the new customer and how you first get to them, educate them. How do you guys continue that along the process and even look at things like replenishment, as you touched on, Kris?
So I think, like, to your previous question, I think you have to really take that and split it into like an uneducated customer versus an educated customer, because an educated customer knows what they're looking for. right? So like they're going to do a very different search or a very different way of getting to what they want. Whereas an uneducated customer, you kind of have to explain why they need what you sell. So like for example, in that essence, like evergreen campaigns are very important. So we'll run evergreen campaigns that we know we're not making money on, but we know it's driving, eyes on the brand, or, solving a problem that somebody may have, or we're at least getting them interested in what we sell. Whereas an educated customer, you kind of just have to show them that we have what they're looking for and that why ours is better than somebody else's, in essence, right? And then keeping the customer's retention. There's a million ways to do it. I think one of the most organic ways is obviously just like this email and SMS marketing. I'm a big believer in not spending more money on retargeting current customers with social ads because it doesn't make any sense. I think if you already have their information, why would you spend more money trying to retarget them online when you can just email them and text them because you have their number and you have their email address? And then, if there's certain ways, like if they haven't bought it in 15 days or 30 days or 45 days, they're getting different emails on, the benefits of the product they purchased and why they need to continue to use it. But if the products are good enough, eventually, especially in the vitamin realm, some people don't necessarily know how good they feel when they're on something until they come off of it. So they kind of just realize that they need to get it because it worked and they need to, get it to feel as good as they used to.
Yeah, makes sense.
I would say for us, the kind of acquisition retention combination is the acquisition campaigns that bring someone into the brand are always on, and so even after they buy, they're seeing the same messaging where they originally bought. It's reinforcing that decision in the first place. And then secondly, because most of the actual consumer relationships are for us are through our retail partners, we're working with our retailers to help on the loyalty and retention side. Or running connected TV campaigns to purchase audiences who we know are loyal to the brand. But we're looking to mostly those retail partnerships to make sure that we're extending lifetime value after we brought someone into the brand.
Yeah, makes sense. So let's shift a little bit, and it's been brought up in some of the other panels, the idea of trust and transparency, right? And obviously, I think consumers demand like a higher level of transparency, certainly than they used to. So in thinking about this, the education, the post-purchase sort of journey you bring your customers on, how do each of you, what's your perspective essentially on fostering that trust and even tactics you have for how you're transparent with your products? I know you mentioned the labeling a bit ago, Don, but we'd love to hear on that.
Yeah, much like what Don mentioned, having third-party testing to show that not only the manufacturing facility is tested, but we're testing that test as well. And whenever possible, we'll use trademark ingredients as well to show that we're not using just cheaper or generic ingredients, but we're actually showing something that is trademarked, so people can have trust in that with, from the performance, the hygiene, from every aspect of that efficacy at the end of the day. The one thing that I always tell people is that the efficacy is what makes sense. Yeah, you may be able to get 2 grams of citrulline, but is that actually going to do anything for you? Well, no, it's going to be 6 to 8 grams. That's what's been shown in studies to have that effective dose. So having that clear efficacy with trademark ingredients really helps with that transparency to the consumer, but then now you've got to educate them to understand that, which, as Dom said as well, if you're talking to a newer consumer, it requires a little bit more as opposed to somebody who's more of a repeat customer that already has your loyalty.
Yeah, I think in this industry now, it's kind of like it's golden standard, right? Like if you don't have a full transparent label and you're not third party testing, it's you don't have a customer, I don't think. But one thing that we did, which was really unique at the time, and I look back and I laugh about it, was so basically the way that it works is when raw materials are brought into a contract manufacturing facility, they're all tested. They're tested to make sure that they're exactly what they say they are and they don't have any different like toxins in them. And a lot of times they fail. Like a lot of times, especially if you're switching from a new manufacturer or a new ingredient supplier. And one thing that we've done in the past is like, if we're going to be out of something and we know it and we know that that's the reason, we post it, we make a post about it. Hey guys, we just want to let you know, like this product may be out of stock for a few weeks. We got product, our contract manufacturer got a raw material and it failed testing. And it's like, and taking a really bad situation and turning it into a good one and showing people how, transparent you are with that.
Great.
I would say we think a lot about kind of 2 moments of truth. There's the moment of truth at the shelf where you're convincing someone to actually buy a product and take it home, and then there's everything after that, right? When they get home and they actually go to use the product, and does it work for them? Is the experience of opening the container a pain, or is it easy and seamless? Is the taste great? Like there's so many elements that factor into building trust after that initial buy into the brand. And, you know, we do all the testing work, et cetera, that's table stakes, as you guys say, but I think it's also just obsessing about product details and eating a lot of your own cooking to know that like, this is something I want to give my family. This is something I feel comfortable giving a grandparent or a parent, or, you know, we launched some kids items this year. It's something I want to give my 3-year-old daughter, right? And putting yourself really in the consumer's shoes by being a consumer helps a lot with building that trust.
Excellent. So we talked in terms of how you're communicating with customers, touched on a few things. Dan, you talked a little bit about things like connected TV, short form video. You mentioned email and SMS. You mentioned content. Let's dig a little deeper into that. What are some of the tools? Where do you see what channels do you feel like you're really connecting with consumers on, even if it's through your own site? So I'd love to hear, and I think that the folks in the room of understanding sort of like where you're really leaning into to make those connections and then ultimately educate the customer.
Sure. Yeah. The typical platforms like your Instagrams and whatnot. But what I found in the past is having something called video trainers, where you're actually taking someone through a journey, and you're actually going through that journey yourself. So, for instance, I've done like a 6 months getting ready for an Ironman, or 12 weeks trying to pack on muscle, or 12 weeks dieting down and guest posing on a bodybuilding stage, for instance, where that person sees you go through the struggles. You get sick, you get injured, they actually see that and understand that. They relate to you a little bit better, because people usually look at all of us on stage and go, they work out for a living, it's easy for them, and they don't really relate. But when they actually see you go through this transition, I'm traveling, but I'm trying to, stick to my meals, I'm navigating all these obstacles, but I still come through successful in the end. It's like, okay, then I can face these challenges and overcome them as well. And of course, the supplements are put in there as long as with your diet, your exercise, whatever. But it isn't sold to them. It's put in there because that's exactly what you do anyway. Now it's up to the unbiased decision of the consumer whether they purchase or not. And people will repeat these programs over and over. I had someone follow one of my programs for the 4th time this year, because maybe they don't have access to a personal trainer, maybe they don't relate to somebody within their own vicinity, but they can relate to something like that is accessible. So that's something that we found that has worked, and that we're probably going to do a lot more of, as long as my body stays intact.
No, that's really cool. I love the relatability aspect.
I totally agree with him. I think that's one of the greatest ways to reach your consumer base. One of the things that we do that's really unique, and I think that a lot of people try to do this, and it kind of like let it go, because it takes a lot of effort to do right, is an ambassador program. And we've been able to develop an ambassador program of over, I think we have like almost 70,000 people in it now, and they're active. And they amount to 25% of our direct-to-consumer sales, which is over $2 million a month. So like we've been able to do really awesome stuff with them. And one thing that we did that was really unique is a lot of ambassadors, and one of the biggest problems you have with the ambassador program is that a lot of them don't have a big following. So it's like, how am I going to get people to use my code or use my discount in order to buy stuff if I don't have anyone who follows me, but I love this brand, I breathe this brand, and I want to be a part of this brand. And a lot of this industry is about community. Like, people are into this industry because they want to feel like they're a part of something bigger than themselves, and they want to resonate with like a brand. And what we've been able to do is use those people that don't have a following, and we take them and we put them in situations where they can do like a demo program at Vitamin Shoppe, or a demo program at Walmart or at Sam's Club, and they get points for doing that. And with those points, they can get products on the website. So it helps the brand immensely, because we're getting basically free labor out of it. But at the same time, we're giving these people the ability to feel like they're a part of the community, and they love it. They absolutely love it. And they take those points and they re-spend it on product.
That's amazing. And if they didn't have a lot of reach to begin with, you're also helping elevate their reach a bit in doing so. And then just quick follow-on question to that. So, because you mentioned the size of the ambassador program, 70,000 people. Are you using like an agency to manage that, or what's the?
The only marketing that we outsource is just media buying. So our marketing team downstairs is, I think, like close to 50 people. We have like 15 full-time videographers. We have like 4 or 5 people who only manage ambassadors. So we have I forget like the affiliate brand or like brand chat. I forget the name of the company, like the thing we use. But it's basically like everyone's loaded into there. We have a Discord that they're all in. We communicate with them daily. One person literally is just a moderator on the Discord and just talks to them all day, every day. And we just have like fun little things in there. So like once you level up to like this level of an ambassador, you get more of a discount, or you get like an award, and you get a T-shirt, and you get, you know, X amount off your supplements for personal use. And it's just like a way for them to like feel like they're a part of something that's more unique, and they get rewarded heavily for continuing to grow that.
Very cool. Thanks, Tom. Daniel.
Yeah, I think our brand is a little bit more focused on wellness categories, so the demographic's a little bit older. So beets is our largest category, ashwagandha, greens, turmeric, mushrooms, other superfoods, and so and we sell across a number of retailers. So to us, that reach and scale from kind of more traditional channels is really important. So yes, connected TV, but also 15 and 30-second linear cable. It's relatively cheap. It is dying slowly, right? But still there, still a lot of reach. And then paid digital and on-platform retail media. And then other kind of educational platforms that we've enjoyed working with Expert Voice to educate health enthusiasts with the Vitamin Shoppe. That's been a great partnership. That's a little outside of our traditional wheelhouse, but we've done it. It's worked really well for us. And then, ironically, because I actually started in the business as an affiliate marketer back in 2008, we're building out affiliate as a channel to support different platforms as well. Nothing like the 70,000 ambassadors.
Kris pumps, that helps.
Nice, really cool. So we'd love to hear, and then we'll get into Q&A. I'm sure folks in the audience have some questions. You all have very, very interesting stories and brands. So, but just innovations or trends that you see coming, and in your perspective, like where are things going with your consumers, maybe the things that they're desiring, and then ultimately we're talking about education. But like, what are the things coming? What do you think people are demanding? Well,
As I'm getting a little bit older now, and my community has kind of grown with me, and Doug's a few years older than me too.
Yeah. Sure, appreciate it.
But no, I see that community now is really focused a little bit more, that demographic, I should say, is focused a little bit more on their health and their health span, what they put in their body. You see it in Vitamin Shoppe, you see the health sector start to expand a little bit. We've seen the biohacking community expand, more events happening around the world, particularly here in the US as well. So I think there is a little bit more concentration into that area that is slowly expanding. So that's what we're trying to facilitate. Well, we are facilitating at the moment. As an example, this is not a sales piece, but like with our essential amino acids, we are actually putting ingredients such as the euthyroidine, the glutathione in there that actually have these long health span benefits in there as well. So we're seeing a lot of that, and people are requesting that a little bit more. So that's something that we're kind of facilitating, and maybe we'll have some kind of testing kits in there because people are utilizing quantification a little bit more to see if what they're doing is working or they're putting their hands together and kind of hoping.
Right. Excellent.
I think the two things that I would say as far as like innovation on our side is one, like Kris said earlier, people are really like starting to push away from caffeine. Caffeine now has been something that has been a hot topic. Like our Bum Energy, one of our energy drinks that we sell is 112 milligrams of natural caffeine, and we did that for a reason. Pre-workouts are starting to be, non-stim pump formulas instead of, these heavy stim pre-workouts. And then another innovative category, which I think we're still a little early on, is the endurance space. I think endurance is a new category, and this like hybrid training or hybrid athlete is something that's like sweeping the country and like the younger demographic. I've never seen more people running ever, like in my life. So I think if you can get ahead of that curve and start jumping into that market and really touching on it, I think 3-4 years down the road, you're going to be really, really happy that you did.
That's great.
In the superfood space, there are always so many new hot ingredients coming down the pipe, and we're constantly focused on how do you notice trends early enough to have opportunities. So think shilajit, colostrum, etc. And often spaces where, frankly, the consumers are not very well educated yet on the space, and they need to understand the actual science and differentiate good actors from bad actors. How do you look at a space like that and create products that are actually good and healthy for people with strong science that have backed claims, and bring those products to market before bad actors kind of soak up all of the dollars in the space? And that's something that we're very focused at getting better and better at doing earlier in the trend life cycle.
If you look at social and like kind of monitor that, do you have people doing research or how is Reddit? How do you feel about that?
It's mostly social trends. It's like a platform called Meltwater that does social listening kind of software, and then TikTok trends, of course, and then all the data that can be gleaned from e-commerce platforms in terms of search frequency rank for certain terms and things like that.
Got it. And then that informs your product development from there when you jump into those particular types. Yeah. Excellent. Well, really appreciate the thoughts so far. We'd love to open up to the audience for questions for any one of the panelists.
It sounds like you guys all have very different backgrounds, which I think is interesting. And Dom, you mentioned raw material testing and how sometimes things fail. That sounds like it's potentially surprising. I'm curious, as entrepreneurs, what has been most surprising to you on your journey in bringing the product to market?
Like surprising or like
Or challenging? Yeah, either, yeah.
Wow, good question.
I think the most difficult thing that we've had to bring to market is like any consumable food. Anything with like a very short shelf life is difficult, and we've done a really good job of making consumables, but it's a whole different animal. You know, I'm used to powders, I'm used to sports supplements. They have like 2-year shelf lives, but working with food and heat and humidity and all that is just a whole different animal.
Just for all of us.
Yeah.
I'd say the most challenging thing for us has been just naturally sweetening our products. Putting together the formulations are actually relatively easy in comparison. We spent a long time after that really trying to naturally sweeten these products because, of course, you may have a product that has 15, 20 ingredients, and a lot of them smell and taste like death. And now you've got to naturally sweeten that so it's palatable, but it's something that people will go back and consume. But we spent a lot of time. In the beginning, Doug was like, "I don't think this is going to be done," but we stuck at it. And was able to do it. But I'd say that's probably been the most challenging thing for sure.
I think a lot of the hard work and the heavy lifting is creating products that meet the consumer's value expectations in terms of product quality and efficacy and claims and everything, experience, and also making sure that everyone in the value chain, up the supply chain, and with our retail partners is making enough for the margin structures for everyone to do well. Like, how do you create sustainable win-wins so that we're all here in 10 years? That's some of the heaviest lifting that I think we do.
I was going to ask a question. On the flip side of a win-win, when you're innovating or trying to come to market with something new, when do you know when to pull out? Like if it's not going to succeed?
We haven't got there yet because
I know.
we literally just launched.
Maybe for the other two.
I'm sure it's coming. I'll say
Yeah.
that
I
question.
mean, like we always. So I would say that if you stick in like the realm of what you do, right? Like if you're making a product that fits in the space, I think they'll all do like decent, right? But I think what we do is we have like a SKU rat at the end of every year. So like we have a lot of SKUs, and at the end of the year, my COO takes all of them, puts them in an Excel sheet, shows how much we have on hand, how much we sold, what the margin of that SKU was. And then you really have to look at it and say, was the time worth it, or is the time worth it to continue to use this, or is it time to innovate it? Like, because sometimes it takes innovation, or maybe we didn't market it properly when we launched it, and it just didn't have the legs in the beginning. And a lot of things come into play there, but I think the best answer is we usually give everything a year. And then at the end of the year, what we'll do is we'll look at it, and then even at the end of the year, we'll say, okay, maybe we didn't. Maybe we didn't launch it right. Like maybe we need to go back and when did we do it, or did we launch something too close to something else that it kind of like overshadowed it? And that's what we do.
Yeah, we have a lot of SKUs at this point, probably 200 plus or so across EMS categories, and we got to a point where certainly we have products that don't go as well as we thought they would go, but we created a view that basically looks at once you already have something live, what's the cash return on the holding of the inventory value? So, because once something's live and it's got kind of its primary marketing spend, what we found is that there are a lot of items that may not be blockbusters, but actually deserve to live on from a purely economic viewpoint of their cash returns once they're already live. And so we tend to let those live until or unless the math looks like it should be rationalized, as Don just mentioned.
We got time for one more. How are we doing? One more? Sir?
Yeah, just two questions from my side is, one, you mentioned how to do your trend scouting and TikTok, and not all TikTok trends are healthy. how do you balance the TikTok trends with robust science? You mentioned, right? You're picking ingredients that have science behind them. So how do you balance that? Because by the time there's a robust body of science behind it, it's still a trend. Kind of question one. And then question two is, once you have this new novel ingredient, what approach do you find the most successful in actually converting the uneducated consumer in becoming interested and really convinced in behind this new ingredient?
I'm gonna start with that though. Yeah, okay. Sure, I'm not.
I think the first thing is I mean, and whenever you look at a TikTok trend, like there's usually if it's a consumable product, it's already has a ton of research behind it. So you have to go back and kind of look at like all the peer-reviewed studies on the product, right? And I think that just because it's viral, I'm speaking, this is the question that you answered earlier, but I don't think just because it's viral, you're going to make it. I think you're going to do your research on the product. And then as far as like, this is the harder part of your question is the second part, right? Like there could be the best thing in the world, but how do you get people to buy it? Because they don't know if it's good or they've never heard of it. And that's where marketing comes in, right? Those evergreen campaigns, like kind of like not shoving it down a consumer's throat, but like to the fact where like wherever they look, they see it, they see the name, they're relating it to, you know, a brand that they trust, like our brands, and it like add-ons to carts. One thing that we do when we start, like especially on the Revive side, when we come out with a new product, it's always half off for the first month. Always. The first month it's always half off because the margin's there. Vitamins usually have a pretty decent margin on them, and it gives the customer like, okay, like if it's not full price, I have a way better chance of trying it. And then after that, you know, if they enjoyed it, then they're going to keep buying it.
I think that the trend identification is the directional starting point, right? And then the hard work has to happen of actually identifying how you can do this in a way that actually helps people. If the products that are already out there are not what you would expect to see, and from a science perspective, how do you fix that, and how do you bring to market something that is attractive as a part of that trend, but is also going to genuinely be positive for people to take.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much to the panelists. Great conversation today. Thanks everybody.